Hello, everybody, and welcome into We the Peasants podcast with Mr. Dad Bod. Today is Friday, the 18th of July, 2025. Like I said in my short video the other day, I haven't done a video in a little while because I'm trying to process all of this stuff with the Epstein files and what's going on with Donald Trump, the person that I personally voted for 3 times now. And I support 100%, and I am a full mega supporter. I am not a paid influencer, as some of these people will say that paid influencers are, leaving the Trump train and they're, running him into the ground. That is not what I'm about. I'm about the truth. I'm about what we were told when we voted for Donald Trump and MAGA. What they were going to do was drain the swamp. Full transparency with Epstein, lists, flight logs, black book, victims, everything. JFK, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy Jr., when he was killed, whatever happened there. They were going to be full transparency within our government. And it was a very big shock to the system when we hear Donald Trump on a news broadcast saying that there is no Epstein files, there is no black book, there's no flight logs, there's nothing, that the Epstein hoax, if you will, was all created by the Democrats as a ploy to get Trump. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I don't know what is going on and why they're saying that, but that is not true. I also did not vote to send more money or weapons to Ukraine, whether it's coming from us or someone's giving it to us and we're just handling it. I didn't vote for that. I voted to drain the swamp, abolish the IRS, full transparency with Jeffrey Epstein, JFK, 9/11, all of these things that they've lied to us for years. I wanted full transparency. Now, things that don't make sense with them saying that the Epstein files do not exist and that it was created as a hoax just to get Trump. They've been friends financially, whatever, business dealings for many years, 20 plus years. Okay? Jeffrey Epstein started getting, attention for sexual predator and child crimes and all that stuff clear back to 1994 and further on after. Why in God's green earth would the Democrats create that narrative starting back in 1994 to get Donald Trump, who didn't even run for president until 2015-16? What purpose could they have had to make up that hoax at that time? It wasn't to get Donald Trump. Obviously, this man was doing bad things. Okay? This Virginia Guilfoyle, or however you say her name, who came out, she came out in 94, 2003. There was a bunch of different dates where she had got picked up from Mar-a-Lago by Jeffrey Epstein. She worked at Mar-a-Lago and she got picked up and taken to his island, and everything from there spun out of control. This is the same gal who was ran over by a bus and told everybody she would never unalive herself, but then unalived herself. Everybody who's ever been tied to being a witness or a victim of Epstein has either unalived themselves or been paid off or dropped the charges because of fear of their lives. It makes no sense how that possibly could be just made up by Democrats. I mean, do you understand that? I mean, that makes no sense. Why they would make something up. And these people are fearing for their lives. They're getting unalived. Even Jeffrey Epstein, take him for instance. The dude is supposedly fake. It was a fake deal created by the Democrats, but yet he unalived himself before he found out that it was fake. I mean, the Mandela effect is really working hardcore here. I mean, to have all of this for since 94 or before, all the way up to 2025, and then we find out that there was absolutely nothing, that it was just fake. All of this was just a made-up Bolognese bullshit story. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for 1 minute at all. I don't buy it. I don't think anybody else should buy it either. Now, I'm going to say something that I don't know how everybody feels about it or what their thoughts are. But here's my thought. Donald Trump is an older man, and he's worth billions of dollars. Okay? So if he was going to parties and he was paying women to party, to have a good time, whatever, that is fine, as long as they're over the age of 18. That is my thought on it. Okay? If he wants to go to a Diddy party, he wants to go to Epstein's Island or the New York mansion with Epstein, whatever. As long as these women were consensual, over the age of 18, who gives two flying fucks what happened? Okay? As long as they were consenting and they were doing what they were supposed to, who cares? And if that is what was really happening, and Donald Trump's afraid that maybe, just maybe, someone's going to look at that horribly, we would rather have the truth than to be lied to and made think that we're retarded because there is no Jeffrey Epstein files. We know for a fact that there is. Like I said, if he went to these parties and was just paying girls and having a good time and partying, then so be it. As long as everybody was consensual and they were over the age of 18. Who cares? Right? That's the way I feel about it. Even the whole Diddy scheme. As long as these people were consenting, they went to his house knowing what was going on, full well what was going to happen at these freak-offs. If they went there and they were of age, over the age of 18, and they were willing participants, who gives a shit what happened at those parties? Who cares? They're adults. They can make up their own choices. If they want to be wild freaks, who cares? Like I said, Donald Trump's a billionaire. He could probably buy lots of women, high-end women, and have a good time. Who gives a shit? Right? Who cares? But if that is what happened and he's just afraid to be linked to the other stuff, come out and tell everybody. We're behind you. We support you 100%. But when you come out and you make us look like we're retards and you say there was no Epstein list and there was none of this and you guys should all just drop it and go about your day, that'll never happen. We will never let it go. We will never let 9/11 go. We will never let Epstein go. We will never stop looking for the truth because our government lies to us. And we're looking to Donald Trump as the person that we voted for to get to the bottom of these things, to drain the swamp, to stop the lies, and be for the American people. Okay? So, that being said, I wanted to read, it's directly from Wikipedia, but this is some interesting stuff about Jeffrey Epstein. Now remember, they're saying that none of whatever happened, that he was a convicted sex offender. He was serving a sentence. Giselle Maxwell, his accomplice, is a convicted sex offender, and she's serving 20 years in prison for a hoax that never existed. It doesn't make sense to me. At all. Doesn't make sense. I mean, you got to look at it. I mean, this mega and following Donald Trump and voting for Donald Trump, a lot of us people, like I said, I'm not a paid influencer. I don't get money for this. I just do it because I want to get the truth out there. But there are people who are paid influencers and they get money for doing this kind of stuff. I voted for Trump. And for that, I have been censored on all of my platforms. I have been deleted and blocked off from TikTok. This is my 4th account now that I have there. I have been, ridiculed going into the grocery store with my Make America Great hat on. And I live in Wyoming, a pretty conservative place. I have gotten ridiculed for wearing my Make America Great hat around town. There's a lot of people who have gotten swatted. They have gotten their whole lives turned upside down just because we support Donald Trump and MAGA. There's people who have been labeled as terrorists for just supporting Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. And these people now are telling us to shut our mouths. There's nothing to see with the Epstein. Go about our day. Let go of 9/11. Let go of what's going on in Israel. Let go of all of this stuff and just forget about it. That will never happen. We know now, after seeing USAID and Act Blue and the money laundering schemes and all of these things that our government is doing to us, thanks to Elon Musk and the Doge team, we know now what's going on, and we will never let it go. We will never let it go. Ever. Okay? So that being said, let's take a listen to this here. Okay? Ready? It's right on Wikipedia. You can type it in. Just type in Jeffrey Epstein and read. I'm going to read a little bit about it because there's some interesting stuff within this article, and it has nothing to do with anything else out there. Really, this is just about his life. January 20th, 1953 to August 10th, 2019. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was an American financier and child sex offender born and raised in New York City. Epstein began his professional career as a teacher at the Dalton School. Despite lacking a college degree, after his dismissal from the school in 1976, he entered the banking and finance sector, working at Bear Stearns in various roles before starting his own firm. Epstein cultivated an elite social circle and procured many women and children whom he had his associates sexually abused. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida began investigating Epstein after a parent reported that he had sexually abused her 14-year-old daughter. Federal officials identified 36 girls, some as young as 14 years old, whom Epstein had allegedly sexually abused. Epstein pleaded guilty and was convicted in 2008 by a Florida state court of procuring a child for prostitution and of soliciting of a prostitute. He was convicted of only these 2 crimes as part of a controversial plea deal and served almost 13 months in custody, but with extensive work release. Epstein was arrested again on July 6, 2019 on a federal charge for the sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. He died in his jail cell on August 10, 2019. The medical examiner ruled that his death was a suicide by hanging. Epstein's lawyers have disputed the ruling, and there has been significant public skepticism about the true cause of his death, resulting in numerous conspiracy theories. In 2025, the Federal Bureau of Investigation released a CCTV footage supporting the conclusion that Epstein died by suicide in his jail cell. However, when the Department of Justice released the footage, approximately 2 minutes and 53 seconds of it was missing, and the video was found to have been modified despite the FBI's claim that it was a raw video. Since Epstein's death precluded the possibility of pursuing criminal charges against him, a judge dismissed all criminal charges on August 29, 2019. Epstein had decades-long association with the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, who recruited young girls for him, leading to her 2021 conviction on the U.S. federal charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy for helping him procure girls, including a 14-year-old, for child sexual abuse and prostitution. Okay? Stay with me. Jeffrey's early life, he was born on January 20th, 1953 in Brooklyn, borough of New York City. His parents, Pauline Stolfowski, and his dad, George Epstein, were Jewish and had married in 1954. Shortly before his birth, Paulina worked as a school aide and was a homemaker. Paula was a wonderful mother and homemaker despite the fact that she had a full-time job, according to a former childhood friend of Epstein's. Seymour worked for the New York Department of Parks and Recreation as a groundskeeper and a gardener. Jeffrey was the older of two siblings and had his brother Mark grew up in the working-class neighborhood of Seagate, a private gated community in Coney Island, Brooklyn. Epstein was referred to as Bear by his parents, while Mark was known as Pudgy. Neighbors described the Epstein family as being so gentle and the most gentle people ever. Okay, so we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to go down here. Right here. At the age of 21, Epstein started working in September of 1974 as a psychs and mathematics teacher for teens at the Dalton School on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Donald Barr, who served as the headmaster until June 1974, was known to have made several unconventional recruitments at the time, although it is unclear whether he had a direct role in hiring Epstein. 3 months after Barr's departure, Epstein began to teach at the school despite his lack of credentials. Epstein allegedly showed inappropriate behavior towards underage female students at the time, paying them constant attention and even showing up at a party where young people were drinking, according to a former student. Other former students also often saw him flirting with female students. Eventually, Epstein became acquainted with Alan Greenberg, the chief executive officer of Bear & Stearns, whose son and daughter were attending the school. Greenberg's daughter, Lane Koppel, pointed to a parent-teacher conference where Epstein influenced another Dalton parent into advocating for him to Greenberg's. In June of '76, after Epstein was dismissed from Dalton for poor performance, Greenberg offered him a job at Bear Stearns. Banking. Epstein joined Bear Stearns in 1976 as a low-level junior assistant to a floor trader. He swiftly moved up to become an options trader, working in the special products division, and then advised the bank's wealthiest clients such as Seagram President Edgar Bronfman and tax mitigation strategies Jimmy Kane. The bank's later chief executive officer praised Epstein's skills with wealthy clients and complex products in 1980. 4 years after joining Bear Stearns, Epstein became a limited partner. In 1981, Epstein was asked to leave Bear Stearns for, according to his sworn testimony, being guilty of REGD violations. Even though Epstein departed abruptly, he remained close to Kane and Greenberg and was a client of Bear Stearns until its collapse in 2008. Financial consulting. In August of 1981, Epstein founded his consulting firm Intercontinental Assets Group Incorporated, IAG, which assisted clients in recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. Epstein described his work at the time as being a high-level bounty hunter. He told friends that he worked sometimes as a consultant for governments and the very wealthy to recover embezzled funds, while at other times he worked for clients who had embezzled funds. Spanish actress and heiress Ana Obregon was one such wealthy client whom Epstein helped in 1982 to recover her father's millions in a lost investment, which had disappeared when Drysdale government securities collapsed because of fraud. Epstein also stated to some people at the time that he was an intelligence agent during the 1980s. Epstein possessed an Australian passport that had his photo but with a false name. The passport showed his place of residence in Saudi Arabia in 2017. A former senior White House official reported that Alexandria Acosta, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who had handled Epstein's criminal case in 2008, had stated to interviewers of President Donald Trump's first transition team, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, and that Epstein was above his pay grade." During this period, one of Epstein's clients was a Saudi Arabian businessman, Adnan Khashoggi, who was the middleman in transferring American weapons from Israel to Iran. As part of the Iran-Contra affair in the 1980s, Khashoggi was one of several defense contractors that he knew. In the mid-1980s, Epstein traveled multiple times between the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. While in London, Epstein met Stephen Hoffenberg. They had been introduced through Douglas Lease, a defense contractor, and John Mitchell, the former U.S. Attorney General. Towers and his financial corporation. Stephen Hoffenberg hired Epstein in 1987 as a consultant for the Towers Financial Corporation, unaffiliated with the company of the same name founded in 1998 and acquired by Old National Bank Corp in 2014, a collection agency that bought debts people owed to hospitals, banks, and phone companies. Hoffenberg set up Epstein up in offices in the Villard houses in Manhattan and paid him $25,000 per month for his consulting work, equivalent to $69,000 in 2024. Hoffenberg and Epstein then refurnished themselves as corporate raiders, using Tower Financial as their raiding vessel. One of Epstein's first assignments for Hoffenberg was to implement what turned out to be an unsuccessful bid to take over Pan American World Airways in 1987. A similar unsuccessful bid in 1988 was made to take over Emery Air Freight Corp. During this period, Hoffenberg and Epstein worked closely together and traveled everywhere on Hoffenberg's private jet. In 1993, Towers Financial Corporation imploded when it was exposed as one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in American history, losing over $450 million of its investors' money, equivalent to $979,509,000 in 2024. In court documents, Hoffenberg claimed that Epstein was intimately involved in the scheme. Epstein left the company by 1989 and was never charged for involvement in the massive investor fraud committed and it is unknown if Epstein acquired any stolen funds from the Tower Ponzi scheme. His financial management firm. In 1988, while Epstein was still consulting for Hoffenberg, he founded his financial management firm, J. Epstein & Company. The company was said by Epstein to have been formed to manage the assets of clients with more than $1 billion in a net worth. Although others have expressed skepticism that he was restrictive of the clients that he took, the only public known billionaire client of Epstein was Leslie Wexner, chairman and CEO of L Brands, formerly the Limited Incorporated, and Victoria's Secret. In 1986, Epstein met Wexner through their mutual acquaintance, insurance executive Robert Mister, and his wife in Palm Beach. A year later, Epstein became Wexner's financial advisor and served as his right-hand man. Within the year, Epstein had sorted out Wexner's entangled finances. And in July of 1991, Wexner granted Epstein full power of attorney over his affairs. The power of attorney allowed Epstein to hire people, sign checks, and sell properties, borrow money, and do anything else of legally binding nature on Wexner's behalf. Epstein managed Wexner's wealth and various projects such as building of his yacht, the Limitless. By 1995, Epstein was a director of Wexner Foundation and Wexner Heritage Foundation. He was also the president of Wexner's Property, which developed part of the town of New Albany outside of Columbus, Ohio, where Wexner lived. Epstein made millions in fees by managing Wexner's financial affairs. Although never employed by L Brands, he frequently corresponded with the company executives. Epstein often attended Victoria's Secret's fashion shows and hosted the models at his New York City home, as well as helping aspiring models get work with the company. In 1996, Epstein changed the name of his firm to the Financial Trust Company, and for tax advantages based it on the island of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. By relocating to the U.S. Virgin Islands, Epstein was able to reduce federal income taxes by 90%. The U.S. Virgin Islands acted as an offshore tax haven while at the same time offering the advantages of being part of the United States banking system. In 2003, Epstein bid to acquire New York Magazine. Other bidders included advertising executive Donnie Ducey, investor Nelson Peltz, media mogul and New York Daily News publisher Mortimer Zuckerman, and film producer Harvey Weinstein. The ultimate buyer was Bruce Weinstein, a longtime Wall Street investment banker who paid $55 million. In 2004, Epstein and Zuckerman committed up to $25 million to finance Radar, a celebrity pop culture magazine founded by Mayor Roshan. Epstein and Zuckerman were equal partners in the venture. Roshan and its editor-in-chief retained a small ownership stake and folded after 3 issues as a printed publication and became exclusively an online one. His Liquid Funding Ltd. Epstein was the president of the company Liquid Funding Ltd. between 2000 and 2007. The company was an early pioneer in expanding the kind of debt that could be accepted on purchases or the repo market, which involves a lender giving money to a borrower in exchange for securities that the borrower then agrees to buy back at an agreed upon later time and price. The innovation of liquid funding and other early companies was that instead of having stocks and bonds as the underlying securities, it had commercial mortgages and investment-grade residential mortgages bundled into complex securities as the underlying security. Liquid Funding was initially 40% owned by Bear Stearns, though the help of the credit rating agencies Standard & Poor's, Fitch Rating, and Moody's Investors Service, the new bundle security were able to be created for a company so that they got a gold-plated AAA rating. The implosion of such complex securities because of their inaccurate ratings led to the collapse of Bear Stearns in March of 2008 and set in motion the 2008 financial crisis, subsequent Great Recession. If Liquid Funding were left holding large amounts of such securities as collateral, it could have lost large amounts of money. So basically, we're going to skip on a little bit. He, had all of these Israeli startups. He has all of these properties. He has all these video recordings, audio recordings. We're going to go down to the first criminal case. In March 2005, a woman contacted Florida's Palm Beach Police Department and alleged that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been taken to Epstein's mansion by an older girl. While there, she was allegedly paid $300, equivalent to $480 in 2024, to strip and massage Epstein. She had allegedly undressed but left the encounter wearing her underwear. Palm Beach police began a 13-month undercover investigation of Epstein, including a search of his home. During the investigation, Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Reiter publicly accused the Palm Beach County State Prosecutor Barry Krishner of being too lenient and called for help from the FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigations then became involved. Subsequently, the police alleged that Epstein had paid several girls to perform sexual acts with him. Interviews with 5 alleged victims and 17 witnesses under oath, high school transcripts, and other items found in Epstein's trash and home allegedly showed that some of the girls involved were under 18, the youngest being 14, with many under the age of 16. The police search of Epstein's home found 2 hidden cameras and large numbers of photos, girls throughout the house, some of whom the police had interviewed in the course of their investigation. Adriana Ross, a former model from Poland who became an Epstein assistant, reportedly removed computer drives and other electronic equipment from the financier's Florida mansion before Palm Beach police searched the home as part of their investigation. The court documents recorded that the search of Epstein's residence by Palm Beach Police Detective Joseph Riceri in 2005 uncovered incriminating Amazon receipt containing books on S&M. The books he ordered are titled S&M 101, A Realistic Introduction, Slave Craft, Roadmaps for Erotic Servitude, Principal Skills, Tools, Training, and with Albertini workbook for erotic slaves and their owners. Former employee told the police that Epstein would receive messages 3 times a day. Eventually, the FBI compiled reports on 34 confirmed minors eligible for restitution, increased to the 40 in the non-prosecution agreement, whose allegations of sexual abuse by Epstein included collaborating details. Julie Bowen's 2018 exposes in the Miami Herald identified 80 victims and located about 60 of them. She quotes the then police chief Reiner as saying this was 50-something she's and one he, and the she's all basically told the same story. Details from the investigation included allegations that 12-year-old triplets were flown in from France for Epstein's birthday and flown back the following day after being sexually abused by the financier. It was alleged that young girls were recruited from Brazil and South America countries, former Soviet countries, Europe, that Jean-Luc Brunel's MC2 modeling agency was also supplying girls to Epstein. In May 2006, Palm Beach police filed a probable cause affidavit saying that Epstein should be charged with 4 counts of unlawful sex with minors and 1 count of sexual abuse. On July 27, 2006, Epstein was arrested by Palm Beach Police Department on state felony charges of procuring a minor for prostitution and solicitation of a prostitute. He was booked at the Palm Beach County Jail, later released on a $3,000 bond. State prosecutor Krishner later convinced a Palm Beach County grand jury, which was usually one done in capital cases, presented evidence from only 2 victims. The grand jury returned a single charge of felony solicitation of prostitution, to which Epstein pled not guilty in August of 26. Epstein's defense lawyer included Roy Black, Gerald Lefcourt, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz, and former U.S. Solicitor General Ken Starr. Linguist Steven Pinker also assisted. In July 2006, the FBI began its own investigation of Epstein, nicknamed Operation Leap Year. It resulted in a 53-page indictment. In June 2007, Alexandria Acosta, then the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, agreed to a plea deal which Alan Dershowitz helped to negotiate, to grant immunity from all federal criminal charges to Epstein, along with 4 named co-conspirators and any unnamed potential co-conspirators. According to the Miami Herald, the non-prosecution agreement essentially shut down an ongoing FBI probe into whether there were more victims and other powerful people who took part in Epstein's sex crimes. At the time, this halted the investigation and sealed the indictment. The Miami Herald said Acosta agreed, despite the federal law to the contrary, that the deal would be kept from the victims. Acosta later said he offered a lenient plea deal because he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence, was above his pay grade, and to leave it alone. Epstein agreed to plead guilty in Florida state court to 2 felony prostitution charges, serve 18 months in prison, register as a sex offender, and pay restitution to 36 victims identified by the FBI. The plea deal was later described as a sweetheart deal. A federal judge later found that the prosecutors had violated victims' rights by concealing the agreement from the victims and instead urging them to have patience. According to an internal review conducted by the Department of Justice's Office of Professional Responsibility, released in November of 2020, Acosta showed poor judgment in granting Epstein a non-prosecution agreement and failing to notify Epstein's alleged victims about the agreement. Conviction and sentencing. On June 30th, 2008, after Epstein pled guilty to the state charge of procuring for prostitution a girl below the age of 18, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. While most convicted sex offenders in Florida are sent to state prison, Epstein was instead housed in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade, and according to the sheriff's office, was after 3.5 months allowed to leave the jail on work release for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. This contraved the sheriff's own policies requiring a maximum remaining sentence of 10 months and making sex offenders ineligible for privilege. He was allowed to come and go outside of specified release hours. Epstein's cell door was left unlocked, and he had access to the attorney room where the television was installed for him before he was moved into the Stockade's previously unstaffed infirmary. He worked at the office of the foundation he had created shortly before reporting to jail. He dissolved it after he had served his time. The sheriff's office received $128,000 from Epstein's nonprofit to pay for the cost of extra services being provided during his work release. His office was monitored by permit deputies whose overtime was paid by Epstein. They were required to wear suits and check in welcomed guests at the front desk. Later, the sheriff's office said these guest logs were destroyed per the department's records. Retention rules, although the Stockade visitor logs were not. Epstein was allowed to use his own driver to drive him between jail and the office and other appointments. Epstein served almost 13 months before being released on July 22, 2009, for a year of probation on house arrest until August of 2010. While on probation, he was allowed numerous trips on his corporate jet to his residence in Manhattan and the U.S. Virgin Islands. He was allowed long shopping trips and walks around Palm Beach, exercise. After contested hearing in January 2011 and an appeal, he stayed registered in the New York State as a Level 3 high-risk repeat offense sex offender, a lifelong designation. Okay, we're going to scroll on down here to the second criminal case, okay? On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested by the FBI and NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on sex trafficking charges. He was jailed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. According to witnesses and sources, on the day of his arrest, about a dozen FBI agents forced open the door to the Manhattan townhouse and Herbert Straff's house with a search warrant. The search of his townhouse turned up evidence of sex trafficking and also found hundreds and perhaps thousands of sexually suggestive photographs or fully or partially nude females. Some of photos were confirmed as those of underage females. In a locked safe, compact discs were found with handwritten labels including the descriptions of young names, miscellaneous nudes, and girl pics nudes. Also found in the safe were $70,000 in cash, 48 diamonds, and a fraudulent Australian passport which expired in 1987 that had Epstein's photo but another name. The passport had numerous entrance and exit stamps, including entrance stamps that showed the use of the passport to enter France, Spain, and the United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia in the 1980s. The passport showed his place of residence as Saudi Arabia. According to his attorney, Epstein had been advised to acquire a passport because, as an affluent member of Jewish faith, he was in danger of being kidnapped while traveling abroad. On July 8th, prosecutors with the Public Corruption Unit of South District of New York charged him with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors for sex. The grand jury indictment alleges that dozens of underage girls were brought into Epstein's mansion for sexual encounters. Judge Kenneth Marr, who was decided whether the non-prosecution agreement that protected Epstein from more serious charges should still stand. Epstein requested to be released on bond, offering to post $100 million with the condition that he would also submit to house arrest in New York City mansion. U.S. District Judge Richard M. Berman denied the request on July 18th, saying that Epstein posed a danger to the public and serious flight risk to avoid prosecution. On August 29, 2019, 19 days after Epstein was found dead in his jail cell, the case against Epstein was closed by Judge Berman. Prosecutors stated that they would continue an investigation for potential co-conspirators. an investigation in France. On August 23rd, 2019, the prosecutor's office in Paris, France, opened a preliminary investigation into Epstein after Yale Mueller wrote to the Paris prosecutor to report an international dimension of pedophile networks involving Jeffrey Epstein, criticizing the slow pace of justice. He is being investigated for rape and sexual assault of minors under and over the age of 15, criminal association with view to committing crimes, and association with criminals with a view of committing offense. The prosecutor said that the goal of the investigation is to find possible crimes committed in France and elsewhere against French citizens. So, I mean, this goes on. I could read, and we could be here for hours. This just keeps going on. Did you know that Jeffrey Epstein, when he was first placed in this cell where he unalived himself, he had tried, supposedly, to unalive himself. And they came in, and they checked on him, and they were able to revive him and get him back, back to life. His cellmate said that he didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing, had no idea what happened. Then, after that incident, he was on suicide watch for a long time. And all out of the blue, they deemed that he didn't need to be on suicide watch anymore, and that he didn't need a cellmate anymore. And then they put him in his cell by himself. And lo and behold, the night that he supposedly unalived himself, the guards that were on duty fell asleep. Okay? Now, I was a correctional officer for 5 years. I know that you're supposed to do a watch tour every half hour. You walk around, you check for proof of life. You have to see skin. When they teach you, they teach you have to see them breathing. You have to know they're alive. And here's another thing that people don't know. If you do not do that watch tour every half hour, you have a computer in your cell block that sends a signal to central control and sets off an alarm. So the fact that these people went and did a watch tour at 11 and he was fine and never checked on him again until 6 in the morning, that would never happen. Ever. Alarms would go off, sensors would go off, things would go off, and you would not be able to sleep through it. So, that malfunctioned. The cameras malfunctioned. Everything malfunctioned and allowed this man to unalive himself by wrapping blankets or sheets or whatever and leaning against a doorknob or jumping off of his bunk, whatever. There's no way. If you've seen the bunks in a cell, there's no way that happened, okay? So, all of this that I just read, all of the victims that were out there, and they're telling us that this was all created as a hoax. It was a hoax. There's no truth to any of this. I don't buy it. I do not buy it. Like I said, you can type his name into Wikipedia and you can read all that yourself. And you can see the victims. You can see all of this. This goes other countries. We're talking some serious high-ranking people. The only thing I can come up with is that if, just like with John F. Kennedy, okay, during his assassination, the only thing that they could do is lock up the information for 75 years in the hopes that everybody who was involved would have passed away. That way there was no one to be held accountable. But here's the thing. After 75 years, what we learned as Americans is that with the help of the CIA, a sitting president was able to assassinate another president to advance their political agenda. And September 11th, 2001 was the same thing. They were willing to do whatever it took to advance their political agenda because war generates money. When John F. Kennedy didn't want to go to war, he wanted peace. That was no good. They had to take him out. We couldn't get Congress's approval to go to war with Afghanistan and Iraq and all that, so they had to stage a coup so that way we could do it. War generates money. They need the power of the purse so they can spend like crazy, launder it back into their committees and their lobbying and their campaigning and all of this stuff so that way they can remain rich and powerful and get their agenda pushed through. That is all it boils down to. So in this instance where we voted for Donald Trump and MAGA, and he told us there was going to be complete transparency and he was going to do everything that he wanted to do, there are some people out there. You got BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, the Rothschilds. These people have money, buku money. I mean, more money than you can imagine. I mean, their portfolio is like $20 trillion. That's more money than is circulating than the whole U.S., okay? These people have power, lots of power. And the shadow government that is running within our government, it is absolutely hard for anybody to do anything. Because if Epstein's list came out, Diddy's list, like I said, if there was nobody underage and they were just having freak-offs and parties, they were all over the age of 18 and they were consenting, I could give two shits. But if there was underage people being trafficked, which there most likely was, and being assaulted, then that is a crime. Those people should all go to jail or worse. But the problem is, when that list comes out, all of Congress, all of Senate, past presidents, our allies with other countries are going to collapse and crumble because of the names that are on those lists. So, therefore, the world as we know it, I don't know how it hasn't happened with just the JFK information. But when they find out that our own federal government was behind 9/11, when they find out for a fact that our own federal government was involved with Epstein and our own federal government is involved in money laundering and stealing our money, what do you think is going to happen to the world as we know it? It is going to change drastically. And a lot of people have ridiculed Elon Musk for walking away. Well, he was hired to find the waste, fraud, and corruption, and he found it, and nothing was being done about it. So exactly what are you supposed to keep doing in that instance? You walk away. If no one's going to do anything about what you're finding and showing them the proof, walk away. Well, sadly, that's what they want us to do with 9/11 and the Epstein files and all of this stuff, the laundering of the Ukraine money and the weapons and the biolabs and all of these things that they've done to us over the last centuries. They want us to just walk away. Don't look into it. Shut up. Go about your business. And if you are good little peasants, then maybe, just maybe, we will send you a $5,000 Doge hush money check. And if you're good little peasants, maybe, just maybe, we will reduce the taxes a little bit so you don't have to pay as much. And maybe, just maybe, if you shut your mouth and you do like you're told, we will continue to let you be a peasant in the United States and pay for us to continue being in power, and nothing will change. So, in the conclusion, I think that they're all full of shit when they say that there's nothing there with the Epstein files. I think that they're all full of shit when they say that nothing happened on September 11th, 2001. I think that our government is full of shit 100%. And I think that Donald Trump should do what he told us he was going to do. Drain the swamp, high-profile arrests, and let's get to it. Mega is behind you, even though we're having trouble with some of the stuff that you're saying and doing, we're still behind you. We're still supporting you. We still voted for you. We want to see action, and we want to see it now. So let's get to it. That is it for today's story. We'll be back with more. I hope you guys tune in to Spotify, tune into YouTube. I try to post a little bit on TikTok, but I get censored. You can check it out on X. You can check it out on Facebook. Wherever you can see this video, check it out. And like I said, I urge you to go to Wikipedia and read everything that they have on there about Jeffrey Epstein. Or if you have Grok, you can type in, "Give me everything you have on Jeffrey Epstein," and you'll get the same thing. So, that being said, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.